Hi. So I welcome you all to this advanced Java tutorial on behalf of Edureka. So let me introduce about myself. I'm Sunil Joseph. So having around 18 years of experience in the software industry. So when we say advanced Java tutorial, it basically talks about database application and web application. So database application, what is that? So a web-based data-driven application is what one word definition of advanced Java topic. Well, so when we talk about Java, we know Java is classified into three platforms based on the type of application that we develop. So that's nothing but J2SC, J2EE, or nowadays it is called as Java SC, Java EE, and Java ME. So that three platforms are used for developing a particular type of application: Java SC, Java EE, and Java ME. Java SC is nothing but standard edition. Java SC is nothing but standard edition. So that standard edition, what is the purpose of that? That platform is used for developing stand-alone application. That means if you develop an application in one device, or if you install a Java application in one device or one computer, that application will run only on that device. So for example, I developed a banking project. So that banking project application we installed on one computer, and that application will run only on that computer. That cannot be accessed from any other device. So in a bank, suppose if you have got 10 computers are there, 10 terminals are there. So we have to install our application in all the 10 terminals. Then only in each device it will work. That's what we talk about standalone or desktop application. And it is helpful for the client side. The second platform that we have is called as J2EE. It is used for developing a server-based application. And it is used for developing web application, which includes in Java, Servlets, JSP, JSF, Java server faces, all that things comes. So this is what enterprise. So what is enterprise application? A web-based application or a client server application. So I was talking about a banking project, banking application. So State Bank of India, ICICI, Axis Bank, Bank of America. So many banks we have. So if it is a standalone application, in each and every bank system we have to install. But you think about in State Bank of India, in India, we got State Bank of India. So they have got an application which they have installed on a server, and the people all over the world, those who are having account with the State Bank of India, can access, can open their browser and send a request to onlinesbi.com, and they will get the response back, the home page they will get. And the third platform we have is called as Java ME. That's nothing but Java ME Micro Edition. It is used for developing application for mobile phone, printer, scanner, all that type of devices, device enabled applications can be developed with the help of Java 2 Micro Edition, Java ME. So Java SC, Java EE, and Java ME. These are the three platforms of Java we have. So in our advanced Java course, basically three topics are coming. One is database, how we can make our Java program to work with the database, how to develop a web application. So if you combine both, a data-driven web application can be developed with the help of advanced Java. So Java is classified into three platforms: Java SC to develop standalone application, Java EE to develop enterprise application, and Java ME to develop micro edition. Now, with this small introduction, we are entering into Java J2ME. It's nothing but we discussed, it's a client server application, a platform independent Java centric environment for developing building and deploying a web-based application. Online SBA.com, Google.com, Gmail.com. These are all called as web application. Simplifies the complexity of building entire application, single tier, two tier, three tier, entire application. So we just got basically three parts. One is client side, second is server side, and the third one is database. So client side, see, I'm checking my bank account. So what I do is I'll open the browser. I open one browser. So this is client side, presentation logic. I send a request to onlinesba.com. So I'm sending a request to onlinesba.com. From this computer, the request is being sent to onlinesba.com and I got the response back. Request response application. We send a request to the server and we got the response back. I'll click on this login. Again, a request is being sent to sba.com server. A response is coming back. Again, I will click on this button. This is all presentation logic in the client side. What you see is nothing but UI, user interface. So we can enter my username, my password, my captcha, what is coming here, enter. We click on login. This data is submitted to server side. In the server, they will get the server have got some server side programs. That programs will get the username and password and captcha, and they will connect to the database, at least this username and password. From that middleware, from their business logic, they will connect to the database and see whether that particular username and password, any record is there which is matching with that. If it is available, they will get the complete details of that user and send it back to the client. So this is what we talk about, a client server application or an enterprise application or a web application. So data driven web application we want to do. But in today's webinar, we are talking about databases. How can we make our Java program to work with a database? So before we enter into that, so we need to know what is basically a database. Database is the place where data is stored. Database is the place where data is stored. All applications are based on data only. So in a database, so we have got database objects called the table. For example, I've got a table called EMP table. EMP table to store the details of employee. So this EMP table contains EMPNO, name of the employee, designation of the employee, salary of the employee. We got department name, then location. So salary, DPTNO. So database is a place where data is stored. So suppose one employee 101, employee name may be Sunil, designation something like manager, salary we give it as 3,500, department number may be 10, department name admin or technical, location Hyderabad. This is one record. So database contains table, table contains records. So this is one record. So like that, multiple employees may be there in the department number 10 of technical and Hyderabad. So what happens is maybe the second employee 102, third employee 103, like that, hundreds of employees may come. So maybe we take it as 100 employees. In the department technical and Hyderabad have got 100 employees. So for each employee, we should define the department name and location. For each employee, we should define the department name and location. So what is happening there? Duplication of data. The same department name and location is duplicated for 100 employees. So in order to overcome that, we got something like RDBMS, Relational Database Management System, RDBMS. So Relational Database Management System. In RDBMS, the related informations are stored in different tables. So it's not that all the data is stored in one table. The related informations are stored in different table and they are linked together with a matching column. So we got EMP table and also we got DEPT table. So in this DEPT table, we got DEPT NO. So department number is 10. So in RDBMS, the related informations are stored in different table and they are linked together with a matching column. So employee details have got department details also. We split that into two tables. So for each employee, we should just mention the department number. So this department number we have. So this department number is linked with the each employee's department number. So the duplication of data redundancy is not happening. So duplication of data is not happening. So that is what we talk about RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. So database is the place where data is stored. In a database, the data is stored in different table and they are linked together. The related informations are stored in different table and they are linked together with a matching column. And that's what we talk about RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. So when we talk about Java programming language, how this Java program can work with any of the databases. So database servers maybe we got Oracle, we may have MySQL, we may have SQL Server, we may have DB2, NoSQL database, anything. So how this Java program can work with a database? That's what we talk about JDBC. Java database connectivity is a Java technology using which we can say how our Java program can work with a database. It's a standard Java API for database independent connectivity between the Java programming language and a wide range of databases like Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, all that. So what are the steps involved in a JDBC program? JDBC, by using JDBC API, application programming interface, we can make our Java program to work with a database. What are the steps involved? One is our Java program should connect to a database. Once the connection is established, we can pass what you want to do with the database. So different operations we can perform. We can create a record. We can create a database table. We can insert the record, retrieve the record, update the record, delete the record. If any operation, if you want to perform, you should tell to the database what database have to do. For that purpose, we use a language called SQL. Every database can understand only one language, that's called as SQL. From Java, we can tell the database to create a table, insert a record, update the record, delete the record, anything. For that purpose, Java program have to pass the SQL queries to connected database. So as a JDBC architecture, when you see this is our Java program application, in between we use something called JDBC drivers, and they will pass the query to a Sybase database, MySQL, DB2, Oracle, SQL Server, any of the databases that we have. So how it will happen, so we will understand practically. So as I told you, database can understand only one language, that is SQL. So what is a query to create a database? Create database name. I want to create a database with the name of Edureka. We say create database name. Then inside that we want to create a table. So this is what the SQL command, create database name, any database name. Project 1, creating a project for Edureka, create database Edureka. After that, another SQL query we are having is, once all the operations are over, project is not in production. So we'll say drop database name to delete the entire database. If you want to create a table, create table, provide the table name, same employee, provide the column data type. What type of data can be stored in that particular column? The second column, what type of data can be stored in that? Third column, what type of data can be stored in that? So a table contains multiple columns. Each column, what type of data you are able to have. So create table is the SQL command. The other one, once the database table use is over, before dropping the database, if you want to drop the table, we can say drop table name. This is what the SQL command. And if you want to insert the record, insert into where you want to insert the record. I want to insert the records into a particular table. Insert into a particular table. What values you want to insert? These values are nothing but not column 1 value, column 2 value. So that values you can provide. So from Java program, if you want to perform any operations on a database, the corresponding SQL queries to be passed. The SQL queries will come to the connected database. There it will get executed and that operation will happen in the database. So SQL. So many SQL queries are there. So when you see the SQL queries are basically classified into 5 categories. One is called as DDL, data definition language. Data definition language. The data definition languages are create a table, create a procedure, all that. Alter the structure of the table or procedure and drop. This is what DDL, data definition language. Create, alter and drop. The second one what we are having is called as DML, data manipulation language. So data manipulate the data. How the manipulation can happen? If I have got one table, I can insert the record, I can update the record, I can delete the record, I can merge the records, etc. Like that, DML. The third type of query we are having is called as DRL, data retrieval language. How to retrieve the data? For that purpose, we use a query called a select query. So we are just talking about what are the different type of SQL queries we have in each database. So data definition language, data manipulation language, data retrieval language, and something called TCL, transaction control language, commit, rollback, and the fifth one, DCL. So DCL, data control language. Data control language. So they are nothing but grant, G-R-A-N-T, grant, revoke, etc. Even save point also. So like this, some SQL commands we have. So what operation you want to work on the database? Based on that, the SQL queries are classified into minimum these 5 categories. So DDL, DML, DRL, TCL, and DCL, data control language. So what are the steps involved in a Java program? So they're showing practically, but I want to show you the steps involved in a Java program. When you write a program, import the packages, register driver and open connection. Pass the SQL query because execution is happening in the database. So depends upon the query, we can get the result, all that. Clean up the environment or close the connection. So before coming to driver types, what I want to show you is, let us take one database. Many databases are there. So if I tell you the steps involved in a JDBC program, the first one is initialize an appropriate JDBC driver. today we work with Oracle database. In that, the first step is initialize an appropriate JDBC driver. The second one, connect to database server. So the most important thing is we have to make our Java program to work with a database. So from Java 8 onwards, Java 8 version onwards, initialize an appropriate JDBC driver and connect to the database server is made as one line of code. You don't need to initialize an appropriate JDBC driver separately. So first, before that, what I do is in my system, I've got Oracle installed, Oracle Express Edition. I just want to create a schema, or I want to create a new user in my Oracle with the username of webinar, with the password also webinar. So let's make a connection to the sysdba SQL plus sys as sysdba. If you want, you can make a note of this somewhere, how to create a schema from the command prompt. I'm not using any GUI tool now. So you can use GUI tools also. In our case, to have a clear understanding, we say SQL plus sys as sysdba. No need of entering any password, just press enter key. I got the SQL prompt. What I'm having is I have got Oracle Database 11G Express Edition. I want to create a new user. So create what? Create user. Username webinar. Identified by webinar. I want to create a schema. Username as webinar. Identified by webinar. Create user. So that when Java program is connecting to a database, we should say it should connect to where? It should connect to webinar schema. So create user webinar identified by webinar. The user is created, but we should provide some privilege. What the user can do, this user can connect and this user can access the resource. So we use a DCL command, data control language, grant connect comma resource to webinar. We say grant connect comma resource to webinar. So grant connect comma resource to webinar. So this grant connect comma resource to webinar, we created a schema with the name of webinar. Now I want to connect webinar / webinar @XC. There is a service name. Oracle have got a service name called as XC. So we created a user webinar with the password of webinar @XC, the Oracle service name or database name. In that way also we can consider @XC connected. Select star from tab. So each project we create different schema. Select star from tab, tables. So no queries are coming. So I just want to, before, our requirement is we want to make our Java program to work with the database. If I want to make my Java program to work with the database, which database it is? Oracle. What is the username and what is the password? What is the URL to be given? So Java program should use a URL to connect to the database. So for that purpose, we created a user webinar and the password is also webinar. And what thing is available inside? Select star from tab. Nothing is available inside this. No rows selected. Nothing is available. So first webinar is username. Second is password. @XC service name. In this system, where it is working, how it is identified. So all are available in my C drive. Oracle XC. Oracle is a database. Oracle is the database server. Oracle is a database server. So here we have got something called a file called TNS names.ora. There is a file called the service name. We call it as a service name. XC service name. Host server name is Sunil. Port is 1521. So port is nothing but, for example, in this computer, many applications are there. Each application is identified with a port. For example, mouse is connected to the mouse port. Printer is connected to the printer port. So that way, so this is what the XC service name, address, port numbers. So we have got Oracle. Oracle is a database like MySQL, SQL Server and all. So if you want to work with Oracle, the first step is we need to initialize an appropriate JDBC driver. Every database have got their own JDBC driver. If you're working with Oracle, the JDBC driver is called as Oracle driver.class. So if you want to make your Java program to work with the database, we need to have a driver, JDBC driver. What is a JDBC driver? JDBC driver is a .class file, a bytecode file. Java have got some classes. So Oracle driver.class. So something like in Java, we have got string, system, file input stream, file output stream, date, so many predefined classes. The same way, Oracle driver is a .class file. Oracle driver is a .class file. So this is what the JDBC driver to work with Oracle. Even every database have got their own JDBC drivers. If you talk about MySQL, another database, the JDBC driver is nothing but driver.class. MySQL database have got a driver called as driver.class. So initialize an appropriate JDBC driver, Oracle driver.class, where it is present. It is present in a jar file called as OJDBC5.jar, or it's called as OJDBC6.jar. OJDBC5.jar or OJDBC6.jar, Java archive file, something like a compressed file. OJDBC5.jar, OJDBC6.jar, where it is available. In this case, Oracle XC, C drive, Oracle XC, I'm searching OJDBC5.jar. So OJDBC5.jar, this is the file. Go to file location. So this jar file contains that Oracle driver.class. Let me come to the desktop. I'll create a new folder. And inside this folder, the folder is called as A. I'll paste it here and just extract it here. So when we extract this, so jar file is nothing but a compressed file, zip file. Whatever contents are there in that, everything will get extracted. So it contains Oracle, JDBC driver. So there we got Oracle driver.class. So I'm talking in such a way that you have got some basic idea about Java. So this Oracle driver.class is a JDBC driver, and it is available with the oracle.jdbc.driver package directory. So what I do is, the fully qualified path is oracle.jdbc.driver package contains Oracle driver. Something like java.lang.string. So we got oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. So this is what the first thing. Any JDBC program, if you want to develop, the first thing is our Java program should be connected to a database. If you want to make your Java program to connect to a database, we require the first thing is JDBC driver. So the JDBC driver to work with Oracle is Oracle driver.class. And the JDBC driver, Oracle driver.class, where it is present in any of these jar files. We could find this jar file. When I extracted, we understood it is oracle.jdbc.driver package contains Oracle driver. If I want to initialize that, what I do is class.forName, and we provide the driver class oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. So class.forName oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. This is the JDBC driver. And class is a predefined class in java.lang package. It has got a static method called forName, which is used for loading this class. And internally, this class contains a static block, and inside that, the object will be created and it will register that. So that's what initialize and appropriate JDBC driver. This is nothing but initialize and appropriate JDBC driver. Every database have got their own JDBC driver. So we are talking about Oracle. The JDBC driver of Oracle is Oracle driver.class, which is available in this package. So is this clear to you, please? How to initialize an appropriate JDBC driver for Oracle? The first step. Now the next one, you can connect to a database. So if you want to connect to a database, we use JDBC API, and the JDBC API is available in java.sql package. JDBC API is available in java.sql package. So in this java.sql package, I want to make a connection. So in order to make a connection, driver manager dot get connection. We will provide the URL, we provide the username, and we provide the password. So in our case, the URL is one thing which we do not know where to connect to, where we can provide the username and password. So what is the username and password? Just now we created the username as webinar, and the password is also webinar. We have got the username and password as webinar and webinar. And how to connect to, we provide the URL. So if you are connecting to a database, the URL is given like this. The first one is JDBC, that indicates the API, application programming interface. The second one is Oracle database server name. It's a database. What is a database? The place where data is stored, a software where data is stored. So Java program can connect to a database in 4 different ways. The fourth way is called as thin driver. Type 1 driver, type 2 driver, type 3, type 4. The last one is called thin driver. Java program is connecting to the database directly. That's what driver type. The first is JDBC, that's called as the API. Oracle is the database. With which database you want to connect to? Thin driver type. 4 type of drivers are there. So thin is one driver type, using which our Java program can connect to a database directly. At localhost, server name on which Oracle software is running. Localhost is nothing but the server name on which Oracle is running. The port number, where it is, how it is identified, where it is running, that is identified with the port number 1521, and XC Oracle service name. So we discussed this one XC. So only confusion is what is localhost. See, for example, when you call me, you can call me with my name as Sunil or Sunil Joseph. When I talk about myself, I say I or I say me. So localhost is a term same as I or same as me. Localhost is a term which is same as I or it's same as me. So JDBC is the API. Oracle is the database. Thin driver type. @ localhost server name on which Oracle is running. 1521 is the port number. XC Oracle service name. This is what the URL to be provided. So using that, we can make your Java program to connect to database. So what I do is we'll provide the URL like this JDBC. Maybe in the program I will show you that. So with this, if it's working fine, we can say our program is connected to Oracle database. If this is working, we can say our program is connected to Oracle database. So initialize an appropriate JDBC driver from Java 8 onwards. Only this line of code is sufficient, where driver manager is present in java.sql package, connection is present in java.sql package. With this, our Java program is connected to database. So import java.sql. So not required to have math. So register JDBC driver class.forName oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. That is first way, approach one. What is this Oracle driver? JDBC driver to work with Oracle. Where it is available? Oracle OJDBC 5.jar. When we extract, we will get the fully qualified package, oracle.jdbc.driver. Another approach is you create an object of Oracle driver and you say driver manager.register driver. That way also we can do. So you can create it rather than class.forName. You can create an object of Oracle driver and you can say driver manager.register driver also. This is approach 2. Both these steps are used for initializing a JDBC driver. Then the connection, get connection, URL, properties or username and password. So it depends on the database. If it is MySQL, com.mysql.jdbc.driver. So MySQL, com.mysql.jdbc.driver and the URL JDBC MySQL. Since we are discussing about this point only to understand that every database have got their own JDBC driver and every database have got their own URL to connect to that. But we are talking about Oracle, oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver, JDBC, Oracle, thin, host name, database server name, port number. I told you what is port number. Mouse is connected to the mouse port. Printer is connected to the printer port. So to identify the application, port number, database name, XC is the database name or schema. Service name. Once you get that, we can make a connection using a database URL with a username and password. Only with the database URL, different ways you can connect. We will see the first one. And then finally, all the operations are there. You can close the connection. So some other things also required. See, what we want is we made a connection. Then the third one. So with this, our Java program is connected to database. So once the connection is established, our Java program should be connected to, our Java program is connected to the database with the second step. Once the connection is established, the Java program should pass the SQL queries to the connected database. Java program should connect to the data connected. We want to pass the SQL query. What do you want to do? As a Java developer, you developed an application. What you want to do with the database? So for that purpose, what we do is we'll create a statement. So create an object for passing SQL queries to connected database. Create an object for passing SQL queries to connected database. For that, different type of statements we have. For that, we use statement. We have prepared statement, or we may have callable statement. We got statement, prepared statement, callable statement. All these are used for passing a query to connected database. So what I do is I'll just create a statement. This is also available in java.sql package. Statement st is equal to connection object dot create statement. That's all. So we made a connection. Then after that, we have got a statement. This object, maybe statement or prepared statement or callable statement, anything is used for passing a query to connected database. Then the fourth one, pass the queries to connected database and get the data if you want. It depends upon what query you are passing. So we are discussing about what are the steps involved in the JDBC program. Pass the queries to connected database. What type of query? st.execute when you're passing a DDL query. st.execute a DDL query. Return type is void. It's not returning anything. We'll say theoretically Boolean, but actually it is void. st.execute update. This method is used for DML, data manipulation language. Statement object dot execute update string DML returns an integer. Execute update DML. So data manipulation language, which are they? Insert, update, delete. All that queries will perform some operations on the database and it will affect some records. Imagine we are inserting one record into the database table. How many records may be affected? One record is affected. Suppose in my database table, we have 10 records and I pass a delete query. When I pass the delete query, how many records being affected? 10 records are being affected. So it returns the number of records affected into st.execute update string DML. The next one, we got st.execute query string DRL, which is a DRL query select. So it returns a result set. So st.execute string DDL, st.execute update string DML, st.execute query DRL, select query. So these are the queries we can pass. If you want, any type of query can be passed with the help of execute method, but separate method we have. Get the results and all, result set, and finally close the connection with the database. So these are all the steps involved in a JDBC program. So I can show it in any of the editor. So let me write a program. So at present, I'll show it as a console based program. I'll do it in Notepad or Edit Plus, or I can show it in, we can do this one in Eclipse. So this is an IDE where we write the Java program. So one Java we have. The first step is we want to write a program to create a table with the name of EMP or anything. So at present, no tables are available, no rows selected. So I'm going to write a program. What we studied theoretically here, we are going to implement this in a practical program. So initialize the driver, make a connection to the database, create a statement for passing the query, then you pass the SQL query and close the connection. So for that purpose, so some folder, project folder is already there. So I'll create a new Java class. So in this Java class, I'll give the name as create table. We are writing a Java program to create a table. So in every standalone Java program, we need to have the main method, public static void main method. In this main method, so I'll initialize the driver class.forName. So what is the driver? Oracle dot JDBC dot driver dot Oracle driver. This is what initializing the driver. Some compilation error comes, so I'll say throws exception. So this is only to understand, not as a live project implementation or anything. This is only to know how to write a Java program practically. So the first step is initialize and appropriate JDBC driver. Initialize and appropriate JDBC driver. The second step is connect to database server. Connect to database server. So class.forName, oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver, connect to database server. So we'll say connection con is equal to driver manager dot get connection. Driver manager dot get connection. So connection is available java.sql package. Driver manager is also present in java.sql package. So we provide the URL. So we are working with Oracle. So JDBC Oracle type of driver. So 4 type of drivers are there in JDBC. The 4th type of driver is called as thin driver. The 4th type of driver is what we call it as thin driver. Native protocol all Java driver. Native protocol all Java driver. It is purely developed in Java language. It is purely platform independent. It's not using any ODBC. It is not using any OCA or native library. So it's called as thin driver. @ database server name, actual server name, I call it as localhost. The port number in which it is working and the service name XC. So JDBC API, Oracle is the database, thin driver type, localhost, because the database is also in the same system where we write this program. Where this program is running in the same system only, database is also present. When you're doing a real project, you provide the IP address of that particular machine. So JDBC Oracle thin @ localhost 1521 and the service name XC. So the next one, webinar, and also we have got the password. So webinar, and what is the password we have done? Password is webinar. So connection con is equal to driver manager.get connection. We provide the URL, username and password. Just now we created the username and password. So the second step is done, connect to database server. Now what is the third step? Create a provision for passing, create a provision for passing SQL queries to connected database. So what is that? We use statement st is equal to connection object dot create statement. So statement is available in java.sql package. Statement st is equal to con dot create statement. So now the statement object we can pass the SQL query. What is that you want to do? Do you want to insert, create a table? Use execute method. Do you want to update any records? Pass DML query. If you want to pass a query for retrieving the records, use execute query method. So let us see, pass the SQL query to create a database table. So that string str is equal to string SQL is equal to what is our requirement? What query you want to pass? So create table. What is that? I want to create a table with the 3 columns. The 3 columns, I just give a simple example of EMPNO, number type with a size of 5. E-name, varchar, what type of data of 30, and salary, number of, the total number of digits 10, and after the decimal point, how many digits? 2 digits. So EMPNO, e-name as well as salary. So EMPNO, we got e-name as well as we got salary. So 3 columns we want. So each column, what type of data you want to provide. So create table, table name is EMP. It has got EMPNO. We'll say number type, the size is 5. So EMPNO, number type. Yeah, create table, table name. Yeah, Snehal. So EMPNO, number 5. E-name, varchar, maybe we give it as 30. Salary, number of, total number of digits 10, after the decimal point 2 digits, and we'll say primary key. Okay, don't think much about that. Primary key EMPNO, that means EMPNO column should have a value, and that value you cannot duplicate. So we are having a query. We are ready with the query. Create table EMP. EMP-NO is the first column. Number 5. That means number type data. The size is 5. E-name varchar 30. Salary number of 10, 2. Total number of digits is 10. And after the decimal point, 2 digits. After the decimal point, fractional part. Primary key EMP-NO. So we are ready with the SQL query. Now this SQL query to be passed to the connected database. Who will pass this? Statement object. What type of query is this? It's a DDL query. So which method should I use? Execute method. What it returns? Void. So we have got create string SQL, create table EMP, EMP-NO number 5, e-name, salary, primary key. Now what we do is we want to pass this. So in order to pass this SQL query, I'll write it inside try catch for exception handling. Catch exception ex. So try block st.execute. We pass the SQL. If there is no mistakes happen, we can say system.out.println database table created. So system.out.println database table created. So we got create table EMP, EMP-NO number 5, e-name varchar 30, salary primary key, st.execute. If any exception occurs, if any mistake occurs, the control will come to the catch block. What I do is system.out.println st.getMessage will say some errors. What is the mistake? st.getMessage, and then finally not st ex.exceptionObject.getMessage. Then finally, so try catch whatever it is, finally close the connection with the database. Close the connection with the database server. So st.close and also connection object.close. So this is what the program we write, whatever 5 steps are involved. Now everything is done. So these are the 5 steps involved. Initialize an appropriate JDBC driver, make a connection to the database by providing the URL. So it depends upon the database. The URL is based on the database. If it is MySQL, some other URL will come, username and password, all that. So try catch is nothing but for exception handling. So whichever statement there is a chance of exception, that we write inside the try block. That's called as the guarded, G-U-A-R-D-E-D. Whichever statement there's a chance of exception, that we are writing inside the try block, so that if any of the statement generates an exception, if any of the statements inside that generates a runtime mistake, corresponding exception object will be created. That object will be passed to catch block. That's what exception handling. And finally block we write, this is called as cleanup statements. Whatever the situation is, the finally block will work. So it's used for exception handling. So whichever statement there's a chance of exception, you write it inside the try block, that's guarded code. So that statement, if any runtime mistake occurs, the corresponding object will be created, and that object will be passed to the catch block. There we are handling, this is called as exception handler, and finally block will work in all the situation. So initialize the driver, make a connection with Oracle database, create a statement for passing the SQL query. We are ready with our SQL query and we are passing that. So now let me run this. So in our Oracle, we don't have the table, but there may be some error. Let me run this. I don't know what happens. Let me run this. Run as Java application. We are getting a runtime exception. What is that runtime exception? Class not found exception. Oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. Class not found exception is what is happening. Oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. So we are using this driver. Where this driver is present, that driver is present in OJDBC 5.jar. So that driver is present in OJDBC 5.jar or OJDBC 6.jar. but we are not having that. So that's why class not found exception. Now where it is present, OJDBC 5. So what I do is, you can have a look into this. I'll right click on the project node. I want to include that library. So right click on the project node, build path, configure build path, libraries, in the class path, add external jar file. So where is the jar file? In C drive, Oracle XC. There we got OJDBC 5.jar. This is a place where that particular Oracle driver is present. I'm selecting for that OJDBC 5.jar. It's available, why it's not coming? So Oracle XC app Oracle admin. So C drive, Oracle XC, OJDBC 5.jar. Oh, maybe I copy, paste, cut that. OJDBC 6.jar. OJDBC 6.jar. Maybe I have taken. Maybe we have cut that. Okay, I will just include this one, OJDBC 6. We just cut that. When we did that previously, we just cut that. So now it is there. So what I do is add external jar file, C drive, Oracle XC. You search for OJDBC 5 or 6, OJDBC 5.jar. So now you will get OJDBC 5.jar inside this place. Select this, open. So that will come as a reference library. So inside the reference library, we got OJDBC 5. So in this program, or whatever Java programs here, we are able to use this OJDBC 5.jar. So let me run this, run as Java application. Invalid Oracle URL specified. JDBC Oracle thin @ localhost 1521 XC. Localhost 1521 XC. Webinar is a username and webinar is a password, right? Correct. Driver manager.get connection, JDBC Oracle thin @ localhost 1521 XC. Run as Java application. WEBA. So if any username and password is wrong, colon. Thin @ localhost. Colon we have not given. So whenever you are connecting with the database, so in our statement we have done JDBC colon. So that mistake was coming as thin, JDBC Oracle thin colon we have not given. So colon, you should provide a colon. Now you see Java application. Now you can see the database table is created. So JDBC Oracle thin driver type @ localhost server name. So in a real project, you should provide the IP address or name of the database server. 1521 is a port number, XC service name, webinar username and password. Now you come to the database, select star from tab. Previously it was saying that no row selected. Now you can see EMP table is available. What is the structure of the EMP table? DSC EMP, describe EMP. These are the 3 columns. Select star from EMP, no records. Select star from EMP, no records are present. Now, at this time, all the database table is already available. Now you run this program once again. When you run this, what should happen? Exception should happen. So at this time, while executing, error. What is coming? Aura 00955. Name is already used by an existing object. Ex dot that SQL exception object dot get message. Name is already used by an existing object. So based on this, you are able to insert a record. We can update the record. You can delete the record. Any operation you are able to perform on the database. This is what our practical thing. Now, one more thing, as theoretically, we have got JDBC driver types. So basically 4 type of JDBC drivers. One is called as JDBC ODBC bridge driver. So what happens is, you have got your Java program. In your system, we should create an ODBC, open database connectivity, and that open database connectivity will pass the SQL query to the connected database. So their performance is very less. So what will happen is, from the Java, the query is coming to ODBC. From that ODBC, the query is coming to database. That is what JDBC ODBC bridge driver. The performance is degraded, and the result is also coming back not directly to Java. The response is coming back to ODBC. From there, the response is coming back to Java. And if anyone removes that ODBC, your application will not run. And we cannot say that it is platform independent, and the driver, this particular ODBC driver, has to be configured on that machine also, separately apart from Java. That's what JDBC ODBC bridge driver. The second one, in Java 8, that ODBC concept is not there. It is available with the Oracle. The second one is called as native API. JDBC native API. That means every database vendor, Oracle is given by Oracle Corporation, MySQL now Oracle, MySQL previously, DB2 IBM. Every database vendor has developed some programs in C and C++ language. That's called as native API. In Oracle, the native API is called as OCI, Oracle Call Level Interface. So Java program will connect to OCI and will work with the database directly. No need of going through ODBC. Performance is improved compared to ODBC. That's what native API, partially Java driver. So what point you have to understand is, every database vendor has developed their own API drivers, as their own native APIs that is developed in C and C++. So that way it is working on. Then after that, the middleware. So Java program is connecting to a net protocol driver, and from there it is connecting to the database. Middleware server. So in the net and all. So for example, I was talking, we started our discussion with onlinesba.com. When I pass the username and password, that username and password will come to the server side program, and that server side program wants to work with the database. For that purpose, they use a type 1 or type 2 driver. That is net protocol Java driver. This is actually, the name is net protocol Java driver. So it is middleware server. And the fourth one is native protocol all Java driver. We call it as 100% pure Java driver. Our Java program is connected to the database directly with the native protocol, Oracle MySQL protocol. That's what the fourth type of driver we have. This is what we have seen in our example now. This is what the example that we have done in our practical scenario. So thanks everyone. So I hope you got something in this session. Thank you.